Hello, today I'm going to talk about the film Mandy by Panos Cosmatos, who is the son of George P. Cosmatos, who is the director of the film Tombstone. I recently rewatched Mandy, and I guess the first time I saw it was about pretty much after it came out. I was in Vietnam and I saw it there, and kind of blew me away the first time. Didn't really know what I was getting myself into, and I had heard really nothing about the film, so it was a complete surprise. Um, and it really, it's just a very, very creative movie. So the other day, a friend of mine and I decided to watch it because he had never seen it before. So I figured I'd give it a second shot, and I have to say that the second time I liked it even better. If you don't know anything about it, I'm going to try to keep this spoiler free, but it's basically a psychedelic revenge horror film, I guess. It has a lot of cult themes in it, and I would say most of the cult stuff is pretty negative in the movie. But, I mean, the first thing I can say about this film is that it's beautiful. Every frame is like a painting. It's almost like a hallucination. The film is very haunting. I think it must have taken many years to design the shots. I've seen his first film called Beyond the Black Rainbow, and I really like that as well. It's not quite as entertaining as this one. It's a little more, it's a little slower, and it's a little bit more abstract, but you can tell, I mean, it was like an 8-year gap between the two films, and I wonder if a lot of that time was not spent designing the specific shots in this movie. Many of them, you can tell where the cuts are, that there was a lot of thought put into how each transition would happen, and creative ways in which to create like dissolves and multiple exposures. And the lighting in the movie creates such an atmosphere. I mean, that's really the main thing about the film, is it creates its own world in a way that's familiar. It takes place in the 1980s, so there's a lot of sort of metal tropes and just this sort of 80s vibe, but it goes off into these other worlds kind of that you can't really explain rationally, but in the movie it's just beautiful the way that he does it. The first thing that I think is really great is the opening title, the song that he chose, which is Starless by King Crimson. And I've always really loved that song, but it fits so well in this movie, and it definitely creates this sort of ominous vibe of what is to come. And with that said, I think the soundtrack by Johan Johansson is also quite brilliant. It's almost more of a sound collage, and it fits the all of the different sort of abstract hallucination type things that are going on in the movie. If you don't know Johansson's work, he did a lot of soundtracks for Denis Villeneuve, like The Arrival and Sicario and Prisoners and Blade Runner 2049. So if you like those soundtracks, you'll definitely like this one. One great thing about this movie is the sort of everything is put into it. I mean, there's all these great dissolves and excellent cinematography, but there's also animation in some sequences. I guess that's a minor spoiler. But if you like all those things and you like it all done with a certain amount of synergy, you are really going to love this. The acting is great. The main three leads are Nicolas Cage and Andrea Riseborough and Linus Roach. Nicolas Cage is one of my favorite actors of all time. You can always expect some madness from him, and he definitely delivers on that in this movie. A lot of people think he's washed up, but I beg to differ. He has taken some questionable roles, but even in movies that aren't that good, he's usually pretty good in them. So in this movie, he gives it his all, and it's, you know, if you're a fan of any of his older films like Vampire's Kiss or Wild at Heart, you will definitely like this, because it kind of channels those performances a little bit. The other lead, Andrea Riseborough, she plays Mandy. She's also excellent. She doesn't really speak much in the movie, but her presence is very strong, and she has such an iconic look that she's just as haunting as the movie, really, in a lot of ways. And I'm sure that's why she was chosen, one of the reasons. And Linus Roach, you probably know from Batman Begins. He plays Bruce Wayne's father, but in this film he plays a very, very different role of this sort of cult leader, and he nails it, I think. He's brilliant in it. And even the supporting cast, there's just, I don't know where he got these people from, but every single person has so much character in their faces, and their performances are mesmerizing and sort of creepy at times, actually creepy quite a lot of the time. And just, you know, they're just, even though they're supporting characters, they command the screen when they're on screen. So I really don't think there's a weak link in the whole film as far as acting. I do think that this film is going to be a cult classic. It definitely has the vibe of a movie like Suspiria, or Heavy Metal, like the animation, or any of the Bakshi animation. It feels like that, and it instantly sort of feels timeless. I don't think people are going to look back on it and necessarily know when it was made. So in that regard, I think it's quite successful. Another thing that I was really struck by the second time was just how the movie unfolds, because at the beginning it's very mesmerizing and it's quite slow and you're not really sure where it's going. Even the second time, I felt myself being sort of dragged into the cinematography and the shot compositions, and almost forgetting what is going to come because I'm so focused on the director's vision. And, you know, maybe the first half hour is like that, where you're just like, what is going on here? But then it takes this turn and it really amps up after that into this very exciting kind of, I don't want to say too much about what happens, but it definitely takes an abrupt change into territory you're not expecting. So what's really great about it is how every time you think the film has you're sort of getting used to the film and you think, okay, I think I understand this, there's some new element that really just throws you for a loop, whether it's some prop or a new character, or you know, different film techniques that are used in a way to kind of break your expectations. And I just think it's done really well. Yeah, I mean, the second time I found myself giggling a lot in certain parts. So I could see maybe seeing this film, 6 or 7 times and, saying the lines, one of those kind of movies where you say the lines and repeat it and you're kind of excited for certain parts. Yeah, but if you have any, if you're into Nicolas Cage at all, or more avant-garde, stylistic filmmaking, you're really going to love this. One thing I was saying to my friend while I was watching this is that I didn't realize this the first time, but it really channels Apocalypse Now in a lot of ways, where that movie feels like it's sort of a drug trip, or it's, like a hallucination. The story is completely different, but the atmosphere is quite similar. And I mentioned Suspiria before, and I also think this film owes a lot to Suspiria. If you haven't seen Suspiria, it's a Dario Argento horror film that is quite influential, and it uses a lot of color and sort of avant-garde shots and things to keep the viewer on edge, or sort of on the defensive a little bit. And I think that in this film, the director does that, but he also does the opposite, where you're completely drawn in. Like there was a moment where I was completely lost in the movie, and not in the story necessarily. I mean, the story was great, and I mean, the story is kind of nothing new, I would say, but the way that he draws you into the shots, you just get lost in it. And there are moments where I was, at least myself, was almost stunned by what I was seeing. And that's saying a lot, considering this is the second time I've seen it. So I think that's about it. I recommend it. I think if you like those kind of films, you're going to love it. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Take care.